Yeah, so I'm recording and Caitlin is recording on her end as well. Um, yeah, I mean, I think, since I really think that Caitlin gets the prize choice here of kind of running the show since she's the individual media outlet on. So, but I think that makes a lot of sense. Caitlin, how is the shot setup? Does that work for you?
Yeah, they look great.
Okay.
And yeah, if you first want to just kind of talk about how you got into it and kind of your experiences, and then I can ask some questions off of that.
And I
That's great.
will I will get rid of my video and audio and listen in and jump on from time to time, but I'm not the centerpiece here, so.
And if you have questions, feel free to jump in. So we're here for you guys.
Well, thanks, Caitlin, for this opportunity.
Yeah,
Honey, it's all yours.
well, we're very excited about this opportunity. Um, when I was in grade school, I heard a missionary talk about being a missionary in an underdeveloped country, and I was in the third or fourth grade, and I was so amazed by it. I decided that's what I got to do. So, actually, our first mission trip was in 1988. We went to Abac, Nigeria. Neither of us had ever done any mission work before. We had no idea what we were doing. This is really a dumb idea. But anyway, we made it there. And of course, this is a little hospital out in the bush. We had no idea what we had. So it was basically a flashlight and some loops to do the surgery and do the best we could. And we were just amazed how well everybody did. The one funny thing is they didn't want intraocular lenses because wearing those big, thick glasses was a sign that the American eye doctor had done surgery on them. And so they didn't want to have really anything to do with that. So then over the next few years, we joined with Volunteers in Mission, which is part of the Methodist Church. And we started doing surgery at the Methodist compound at the Kissy Eye Hospital, which Dr. Kissy started many, many years ago.
Dr. Guess.
I mean, Dr. Guess.
Yeah, it was named
That,
Kissy for where it was located.
right.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. Anyway, so Dr. Guess started this hospital, wonderful man who's now passed away. Um, and our first trip there was with the Volunteers in Mission. And then one of the guys in the group said, "Hey, look, when the war's over, would you come back to my country?" So
Yeah, so that's what got us there.
that's what kind of got us there. But then the Catholic Archbishop, his sister is a physician. And so I went to her to find out, is there any way that we can work up these patients who have all this inflammation in their eyes? Well, there obviously wasn't. They just don't do lab work like that. But she said, I want you to meet my brother, the Archbishop. And we're both, okay, we're in trouble now. Because we both were born Catholic and raised Catholic in Catholic schools and the whole bit. Anyway, so we go to talk to him, and he says, you need to be going out to the country where they have no access to any health care. And so we agreed, and it was 2005 we did our pilot trip, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. So we went there. We just brought everything we thought we might need. It was the craziest thing. We set up a little operating corner and did this one person's surgery. And
And if you like lizards in your operating theater, that was a good place to be.
yes, exactly. I never.
It was crazy.
It was very crazy. Um, but then when we got back, we told the Archbishop, with all due respect, um, we need some things to do surgery, like water, electricity, some instruments,
A sterile
a
environment.
sterile environment. Yeah, it was amazing. And he said, the problem with you Americans is you have no faith in God. If you had faith in God, there would be an eye clinic in Sarajevo, Sierra Leone. So we kind of
It,
just,
it was pretty cute. He said, well, think going back to 2005, since you're willing to do a pilot somewhere out in the bush, why don't you go to my home village, Sarabu? And that's how we got to go to Sarabu. It happened to be his home village, but it is a very special village. A village it's half Christian and half Muslim, and they live and love together. I mean, they could show the whole world how to live together. You know, all the fighting that's going on in our world. This little Shangri-La is just quite something.
and the people there were so accepting of us. Now, remember, it's a male dominated society. So for us to get permission to build the eye clinic and set the whole thing up, there had to be meetings with the paramount chief, the town chief, the section chief, the archbishop, but no Dr. Kathy, because she has the wrong chromosomes. And so they would only meet with Mr. Tom. And it got to be a joke that Mr. Tom brings a very fine woman to do the surgery.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it wasn't Tom and Kathy, it was Tom and Mr. Tom's fine woman. But anyway, over the years that's evolved into Tom and Kathy.
but since we've been going there for such a long time, we are really now members of the community. So it's not like when we go away, we think, oh my gosh, nothing's the same. When we come back to Sarabu, there it's like mom and dad got home, and that they always surprise us with stuff. So the last time we got there, and they have a rainy season and a dry season. So we were not there during the dry season, but we were there just at the start of the rainy season. We get there and go to the little place where we stay, and there's a sidewalk that goes from that little house to the eye clinic. I went, wow, this is great. And they said, Dr. Kathy, you just had surgery. You can't be walking on slippery mud. We were afraid you would fall. So they built a sidewalk just for me.
That was really sweet.
They really are sweet. There's lots of Toms and Kathys running around the village because they name them after us.
And being a citizen now of this village, that's what led to all the community development activities over the years where we saw other needs. And so while eye care is still the cornerstone of what we do, there are other things we do.
It was amazing, though. They would bring these children to the eye clinic almost dead from dehydration because they had a waterborne illness. So that meant that no longer were they going to be getting water from the cesspool where the animals would walk through it and defecate, and
It's where they wash their clothes and everything.
Car, whatever.
So developing these 9 community water wells was huge. That's probably the most important thing we did in terms of the life of the village.
Oh yeah, and the thing is, the team that helped us get the water wells going also came and taught about hygiene and cleaning your utensils. So don't go work out in the field and come back and prepare a meal because you're going to have animal feces and all that stuff on you. So that team came and they talked about hygiene and washing your hands. And so we actually set up a routine so that when they get to the water wells, there's a soap hanging from a string, and they get that all lathered up. And there's a little, like what do they call that? That little bucket. So they have a little bucket tied to a string, and they press on that.
They can rinse
and they rinse their hands, and then they go into to get the water. Yeah, something like that.
But we've also we've been able to institute some feeding programs. There's a church in Memphis, Tennessee that provides us about 100,000 meals a year, and we add to that and serve upwards of about 200,000 meals a year. We've given out over 2,000 scholarships to children so that they can go to school. About half the kids were in school when we arrived, and we set a goal of getting all kids in school, and we've accomplished that goal. And we have kids now from kindergarten to medical school on scholarships from our program. A family out of Texas donated a computer center, 20-station computer center, which has been fabulous. We have a real entertaining sports program that really builds community spirit. And there's various competitions and things. I'm sure I'm leaving some things out, but that kind of gives you a sense, being a citizen, you can't help notice other needs and get involved in the community in other ways.
And just walking around the community, you can see that things are happening. Like we learned that there were 2 age groups that weren't getting food. The elderly weren't getting food, and then the little toddlers weren't getting food because
they at least were last on the food chain.
They were, yeah. And part of that you can understand. They are an agricultural community, and if you can't work in the field, they're not going to spend a lot of time feeding you.
Well, unfortunately, they have to decide who gets the food
exactly
if they don't have enough, and too oftentimes they just don't have enough.
And even when they come to the eye clinic, they've been walking for days, And so when they get there, they're hungry and they're tired, and they come with literally the clothes on their backs. So we feed them as soon as they get there, and we actually give them food before they eat. You're probably used to hearing people say, "Nothing after midnight, you're having surgery." Well, that's not the way we do it, because when they come in, we give them um, this like beans and rice or some macaroni or something that's high carb, and they're sitting in our area where we dilate them, and then all of a sudden everybody's like, so we have a beans and rice form of anesthesia. We really don't do any anesthesia. We numb up their eyes with drops and then do the surgery. On the little ones, the youngest I think I've done was about 6 or 9 months. I think Mustafa was the youngest.
Yeah, around 6
Um,
months.
and so we started IV and give them a little bit of medicine, and then I have a tech. He's sort of like a CRNA, but he just holds his hand on the chest and says, "Doc, they're still breathing," because I don't have any monitoring equipment for the children. So we just watch them really, really closely. And it's amazing how well they've done.
Yeah. That's about 10% of the eye surgery we do is on children. Mostly cataracts.
I was going to say, if you could talk about, I think especially when you're coming from the States, there's so much that we take for granted. You talk about a sterile work environment. These are things that we expect when we, go to the doctor's office. So talk about kind of overcoming those challenges to provide this very necessary care for these people.
Well, it is extremely necessary, because the people that have the cataracts that come to us, their pupils are white, and they haven't had access to health care for a lot of, like, 20 years. And so just removing one cataract will free them. So they've been sitting in a hut, and a kid gets taken out of school to take grandma to the bush to go to the bathroom and to feed grandma. And so if I take out one cataract, two people are actually freed. So the patient now can go, and the student or the other worker can now go back to being productive members of their family.
When Archbishop Gonda, just to extend that thought, um, asked us to build this eye clinic, Kathy looked at me and said, now this is 2005 that we agreed to do it, and we opened it in 2006. She looked at me and she said, okay, Tom, up until now, from 1988 until now, I've been using whatever technology the hospital or the clinic that we're working at has, but now we're in charge of this technology. And I'm not willing to be responsible for a clinic where I wouldn't be willing to have the surgery on myself if I needed it. And so that really got into the heart of your question about how did we overcome these differences. Part of it was just the determination to overcome it. So the instrumentation and the equipment and the surgery that Kathy does and other surgeons do is the same modern cataract surgery that they do here in the United States. And the other issue was patient access. Having a facility was just the first of two major decisions. The second major decision was that to make it a free clinic, because even if the patients had access, the per capita income in Sierra Leone is I think it's now fifth lowest in the world. It's less than $600 per year. Per capita income in the United States is up around $75,000 a year. Can you imagine? But 80% of the population is unemployed. They have their little gardens growing with as much food as they can, just trying to get by. And so you take 7 or 8 million people, most of which are not working. Yes, there are some wealthy families in Sierra Leone, but they're few and far between.
So when they come to the clinic, they're often holding a stick, and then someone's also holding the stick. So, the person who can see is leading them into the eye clinic. And so when they get that one cataract done, their world opens up. And
Yeah.
some of the stories are so funny.
There's some good stories.
Like this old grandmother said, now my grandsons can't steal my meat from my plate anymore. I can see what's on it. She was really cute.
One man got off the table and made a short little statement about how he's going to marry the doctor. He was so happy.
I want to marry the doctor. I want to marry the doctor.
So there's lots of stories, but it's,
are.
as you can imagine, given that the average length of blindness on the adult population that's having cataract surgery has been blind for over 20 years, it's huge for them to wake up on the operating table because of the modern surgery and start seeing again. Assuming they don't have any other eye problems. And occasionally they do have other eye problems, but most of the time they do very, very well.
The area is endemic with onchocerciasis, which is an organism that's spread by the fly, and then it bites the patient, and the larva goes into their skin, and then it just goes different places. What it does to the eye is it gives them the white cataract, so you can't see inside of it, but it also destroys the retina and optic nerve. And so you work so hard to get that white cataract out, and then they can't see, and we're all like, oh.
That's disappointing.
But it is disappointing, but
Yeah.
we all work as much as we can to do the best we can. And you asked about the sterility. It's been amazing that we've been able to make the operating room so not only is it sterile, but it's climate controlled, so all of our equipment doesn't get dusty in the dry season or moldy in the wet season. And that's been a huge thing to know that room and that equipment is always protected.
We also send a couple of containers a year with medical supplies and to refurbish and new equipment as we're able to afford it. So there are things that we can do to overcome it. We've got, besides our donor base for financial support, we also have a donor base for pharmaceutical and equipment support as well. We get a lot of things donated. And then there's nothing like our savings account to make up the difference.
But Wells Eye Hospital has been very supportive, and they will often send their fellow. So a fellow is someone who's finished their residency and they're doing extra training, and they've all been wonderful, compassionate.
Yeah, our medical staff is up to nine ophthalmologists who have adopted this mission as something that's important to them to be involved in every year.
You mentioned this was a calling for you that had come from, grade school age. And, no one who I've ever known that's done mission work obviously does it for recognition. You do it because it's a calling. But what has it meant to you and both of you to be recognized for all this work that you've done, trying to make a difference in these communities?
Well, nobody gets to the top by themselves. So it's like a chain. You don't have all the links in the chain. It's just not going to work. And that's how we both feel about setting up the clinic. We couldn't do it if we didn't have the support of people actually in the village. Obviously, the different chiefs could have said no, or we didn't have the proper equipment. We didn't have something. And we're always having to kind of, build something to make something else work.
It's been fun to share this Catholic Doctor of the Year award with the villagers back in Sarabu. When they saw the pictures of Kathy receiving the award from Archbishop Gomez out in Los Angeles, they wrote back asking if that was the Pope. Because he was wearing the mitre, and it was really sweet.
Yeah.
I guess the other thing that I would add is that it comes at a sweet time. You might know Kathy is struggling from glioblastoma right now. She was diagnosed with brain cancer 9 months ago, and while we've reconciled it ourselves on our walk with Christ, it's still a huge challenge. And so the timing probably couldn't have been better as far as that goes, to get a little pat on the back for the 35 years of hard work that she's put into it. So that's been nice.
But it's been such joy. Like when we come back from our trips, we're just physically exhausted because you're sweating like a pig. You're not drinking enough water. You're not getting enough rest. Everything hurts. But we come back so spiritually uplifted. We just feel so good about what we've done. Now, obviously, there are times when there may be a complication or something, and that just like rips our heart out, because we know that there's nobody to send them to. So what do you do?
That axiom of joy, Jesus, others, and yourself, and living our life that way has been so rewarding. We started out thinking we were going to help people, and we do, but golly, the help that we've gotten has been overwhelming.
Even when we did that very first mission trip, when we didn't have all the things we needed, I mean, we were in this desolate little Archbishop Gonda's village, and I looked at Muhammad, who's one of our employees, great guy, he's so smart, He's learned everything right there. And I said, Mom, how do we do a post-op? We don't even have somebody that has nursing experience. We don't even have a witch doctor here. We don't have anything here. And Mohammed said, Doc, what you have done, no one else can do. And you've done your part, and now God will take care of these people. So we were like, oh, well, there's that faith card coming up again.
Well, we did have an ophthalmic nurse, and Mohammed's very skilled himself,
Yeah.
so it wasn't like they were being abandoned. But again, bridging that difference between the standard of care in the United States and the standard of care that's even remotely available in these third world countries is quite a challenge.
And it's amazing how little they get along with. Like Tom said, I wanted to do modern surgery. That they're like, give me a knife and fork, we'll get this cataract out. You know, I was just like,
Well, there are some in some of those remote areas they just take a stick and poke it into the eye and push the cataract, which is the lens of your eye. They just push it out of the way so you can see a little better, maybe 2400 instead of nothing. But it's pretty crude in some areas.
That's called couching. So if you want to see what it really looks like, just go on, online. It's just couch like you lay on, and then ing, couching, couching
That's a
the
terrible,
cataract.
terrible procedure.
And because they're making a big incision, there's more infection in the eye. Oftentimes it causes retinal detachments, and there's no way to fix those out in the bush. So anyway.
I'm curious your message, I think people will hear your story and think, these people have done so much in a world that seems so far away, and they might think, well, what can I do? I'm only one person. What would your message be to those who want to give back to these communities, when they recognize kind of that privilege that we do have here in the States?
Well, I think it's like everything else. It takes a bunch of drops in the bucket to fill the bucket. And this is the same way. So whether people are praying for us, whether they want to make a financial donation, whether they want to join us on a trip, there's everybody has some talent that they can bring with them to the village. I mean, it could be working with the kids in the kindergarten and just coloring in between the lines. It could be teaching artwork to kids that have never been exposed to it, and then seeing that there's really some hidden talent in there. We had two girls from our village, our little town we're from in Sayre, and they didn't want to be in the operating room. They're like, oh, I'll barf if you make me go in there.
They were with us this past summer. We take young adults, high school and college age students every summer. And they were part of that team.
They were so great. One of the teachers went to Tom and said, oh, this year you bring all these experienced educators.
Professional teachers.
Yeah. And when they heard that, they're like, oh, wow. Because, they've gone to college, but they've never taught.
They don't necessarily have a teacher's certificate, but they did a great job.
Yeah, they were wonderful.
But yeah, there are just so many ways to contribute. The number one ministry for anybody that goes with us is really just a ministry of being present, just being there, hearing their story, empathizing, sharing ideas. The youth in particular are revered by the people in this village. They love to hear the dreams of the high school and college students that go with us in the summer, what they're going to be doing, and they just sit in amazement of all the volunteers that would say, golly, you would actually take time out of your life in America to come here and to help us, and it's huge. It's huge. Our website is southerneyeinstitute.net. So there's all kinds of resource materials, videos, photos, all kinds of ways to learn more about what we're doing. But I would say that if I had to choose one word that summarized everything what we're doing, it would be the word love. Kathy and I have been blessed with a huge love between the two of us since the moment I met her, and a year later when she agreed to go out with me. She was not quite as impressed with me as I was with her, but we've had an incredible, strong, loving relationship. Our careers have blended together. She's been in medicine on the patient care side. I've got my master's in healthcare administration on the administrative side, so I kind of handle the logistics. We've got just a great group of donors that's growing and increasing every day. That's helped support us financially. God's blessed us with good income and the ability to put up a significant part of that income to help support it as well. And just the prayers, the outpouring of prayers for our work. Oh gosh, it was so evident when I was first learning about Kathy's brain cancer. It just we heard from all around the planet. I had to set up a website just to do an update on her because I couldn't keep up with all the text messages and phone calls. I mean, there's hundreds of people following, her care every day, and so each week on Sarabu.com, I do an update on Kathy. But I think that's it. Love.
Yeah, it's so true. A lot of times when we talk to like youth groups here in the United States, we'll ask them to just sit back for a second and tell me how many faucets you have in your house. You got a couple in the kitchen, a couple in the bathroom, got the shower, got the outside places. How many bedrooms are there? Count them up for us. Well, we only have 9 water wells in our village of 6,000 people. And how many live in your house that have 15 water spigots? And so that just at least gives them an idea. And we've had so many of the young people that have gone with us are just so changed from the heart, you know.
Yeah, they are.
Um,
They
one
are.
one woman is in Uganda right now. She's working through the system, and she's a physician. We had another young woman who came with a civil engineering degree. She went back to the States, and now she's a surgeon. So she does mostly traumatic surgery.
And the volunteers that come with us, the young people in particular, but all of them go through such a transformation to live and work among the poorest of the poor in our world for a few weeks, and yet at the same time to realize that these people have real joy in their lives.
They really
Yeah, they're
do.
dirt poor. They don't know where their next meal's coming from,
Yeah.
but they're not unhappy.
No,
They're
no,
they're not sad.
they're very
Their faith is so strong, and it's just so humbling, frankly, to be with them. And so people come back and they're not quite as attached to that cell phone that they thought they couldn't get out with, do without with. They're not quite as um, you know unobservant to how long the water runs before they finally get their toothbrush in there and start brushing their teeth, etc. When other people they know people, who have to walk and go carry a bucket, and at least they have a water well to walk to. They're no longer, scooping it out of some creek, but it changes people, and much less attachment to our material world, a lot less importance on I this, I that, and
except for these eyes.
that's a good point. And a whole lot more importance on our responsibility to each other.
And we've been real fortunate too to be able to hire people from the village to help us run things when we're not there. I mean, we can't be there, 365 days a year, but Tom communicates with them over the phone.
Amazingly, we're up to 64 employees. Does that not just blow your mind? It's a full-time, year-round operation, and they have taken such ownership of this clinic.
They're very proud of it. Yeah.
I mean, I have the easiest job in the world working with them. They do all the work, and it's so fun because they now make recommendations to me. It took me a while to keep saying to them, how do you see it? How do you see it? How do you see it? Vocabulary is so funny too. The very first day, I was out there in the courtyard saying, now, if y'all would just form a line right here, we'll give everybody a number, first come, first serve. And nobody moved. And so somebody said, Q. If y'all form a queue here, and all of a sudden everybody, whoop, form like, well, that's a real simple example of things that go on all the time where there's misunderstandings because of language, but somehow or another we get through it.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your story with me. It's very inspiring, and I'll be thinking of you and both of you as you continue on. But I'm excited to be able to share this, exciting recognition and more of your work with our viewers here in the Southern Tier.
Thank you so
Thanks,
much.
Caitlin. I appreciate it very much.
I think you need to go on one of these trips to be able to fully express.
What a great idea. So you have an open invitation.
Oh, well, thank you so
every
much.
January and June.
I don't know if I can get out of work that long, but maybe you talk to my boss, right?
Well, maybe we can talk them into being a special project.
There we go. I like the sounds of that for sure. But I unfortunately have to jump off this call, but thank you both so much. And thank you, Steve, for setting